Chances are, if you live in Canada, you've most likely gone to Niagara Falls. It's a fascinating place, and it's a really cool place to check out. But for some reason, those falls always attract daredevils, and those daredevils keep wanting to go over the falls. So today, I'm looking at the various people who have gone over the falls and survived, and some, sadly, who did not. Now, it's estimated between 1850 and today, 5,000 people have gone over the falls. And about 40 people go over the falls every single year. Unfortunately, a lot are suicide. Now, I won't be covering anybody who went over the falls because of suicide, only those who plan to go over the falls or went over the falls accidentally. So let's go into this history of Niagara Falls and the various people who have gone over. We begin with an absolutely terrible story. In 1827, William Forsyth, a hotel owner, bought a ship, called it the Michigan, and filled it with buffalo, 2 bears, 2 raccoons, and a dog. Some say he also had 2 foxes, 15 geese, and an eagle on the ship. He then sent the ship adrift, and the 2 bears jumped free and swam to Goat Island. The rest of the animals, except for the geese, went over the falls and died. On July 19, 1853, Joseph Avery, sometimes called Samuel Avery, went over the American side of the falls and spent 18 hours clinging to a log in the rapids above the waterfall. Avery had been working on a barge and drinking and attempted to row from Goat Island when his boat capsized. Attempts were made to rescue him, including using a tethered boat, but it capsized, and Avery was swept over the falls to his death. On October 24, 1901, Annie Edison Taylor went over the falls in a barrel, becoming the first person to intentionally go over the falls and survive. A cat had been put into the same barrel a few days previous to test it, and also survived. Taylor was mostly unharmed except for a few bumps and bruises, and the day she went over the falls was also her 63rd birthday. After the journey over the falls, she told the press, "If I was with my dying breath, I would caution anyone against attempting the feat. I would sooner walk up to the mouth of a cannon, knowing it was going to blow me to pieces, than make another trip over the fall." On July 2nd, a few years later, Ed Delanty, a star baseball player for Washington, was kicked off the train by the conductor for being drunk and disorderly. The conductor said that he had consumed 5 whiskeys and was threatening passengers. Delahanty, after being kicked off the train, began to walk across the International Railway Bridge when he fell over and into the river. It is not known if the fall from the bridge killed him or going over the falls. When his body was found, it was heavily mangled and 1 leg was severed. In 1945, he would be inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. On July 25, 1911, Bobby Leach went over the falls in a barrel. He would spend the next 6 months in hospital with 2 broken kneecaps and a fractured jaw. On July 11, 1920, Charles Stevens decided to go over the falls in a barrel. Bobby Leach, the man who went over previously, urged him to test the barrel before going over the falls, but Stevens refused. When the barrel was found at the bottom of the falls, all that was in the barrel was the severed right arm attached to the safety harness. On July 4, 1928, Jean Lussier went over the falls in a large rubber ball with a steel frame. The ball was also lined with oxygen tubes, and Lussier would survive despite the heavy damage to the ball. 2 years later to the day, George Stathakis, a Greek immigrant, went over the falls in a barrel. The barrel struck a curtain of water and could not be recovered for 18 hours. Unfortunately, the air supply for Stathakis was only 8 hours, and while he survived the fall, he suffocated inside. Amazingly, he went over the falls with his 150-year-old pet turtle, who survived. On July 9, 1960, Roger Woodward, a 7-year-old boy, was on the river with his sister Deanna and his uncle James Honeycutt. When the boat capsized, Roger went over the falls in his life jacket and was pulled out of the water by the Maid of the Mist at the bottom of the falls. He became the first known person to go over the falls accidentally and survive. His sister Deanna was pulled from the river 20 feet before the falls, while his uncle would perish. On July 3, 1984, Carol Sukek went over the falls in a barrel and only suffered injuries to her face when her wristwatch hit her in the face. She fell at a speed of 121 kilometers an hour, and it took 45 minutes to recover her barrel. On June 5, 1990, Jesse Sharp went over the falls in a whitewater canoe. His intent was to continue paddling after the fall, and he even made dinner reservations at a restaurant 6 kilometers down the road. He did not wear a life jacket in case it would impede an escape if he got trapped under the falls, and he refused to wear a helmet in order to keep his face recognizable for the cameras. He soon disappeared into the falls, and his kayak was found downstream. His body was never recovered. On October 1st, 1995, Robert Overacker went over the falls on a jet ski to raise awareness of homelessness. His parachute failed to open, sadly, and he plunged to his death, with his body being found the next day. On October 22, 2003, Kirk Jones swam 91 meters into the river before going over the falls. He had been drinking with his friends and planned to record the event, but his friends couldn't open the camcorder. Jones went over the falls and survived, becoming the first person to survive the drop without any aid in the fall, like a life jacket. He was fined $2,300 and banned from entering Canada for life. On April 19, 2017, Jones went over the falls in an inflatable ball and did not survive. His body would be found nearly 2 months later. I hope you enjoyed that look at Niagara Falls and the various people who have gone over the side. It was really interesting to research and a lot of crazy daredevils, and I can't imagine myself doing something like this. If you like, you can support my podcast, Canadian History Ehx, and this YouTube channel by becoming a patron. You can do this for as little as $3 a month. Just go to patreon.com/CanadaEHX. You can email me any questions you have at craig@canadaehx.com, and you can find hundreds of articles on Canada's history on my website. Just go to canadaehx.com. I'd also like to mention on July 26th at 3 p.m., I'm hosting a Zoom history conference on the 1913 Great Lakes White Hurricane. It's a really cool story about a terrible storm that sunk 19 ships and killed 250 people. It's $5 to register or free for my patrons. If you want to register, just click register on my website. Again, that's CanadaEHX.com. Thanks. We'll see you again next time.